Hi, and welcome to Expert Selling, given to you by the University of San Francisco. My name is Scott Bush, and I'm the president of Bredesen & Associates, where we do executive coaching, sales training, sales management training all over the world to thousands and thousands of professionals just like yourself. This course is designed not to make you into some super salesperson. It's designed to give you the fundamentals and the tools and the techniques that have been proven by successful salespeople all over the world. Now that you're in sales, what do? Well, we can take 3-hour lunches. We can call our friends. I'm sure you probably get your new cell phone by the company that you're going to choose. But sometimes it's not that easy. In fact, I know it's not. Although sales is not that difficult either. Our job is to provide you with the right tools and techniques to ensure that you're successful. This is a tool-based type of program. And what we'll do is we'll provide you with enough tools that you'll be able to pick the right tool for the right situation. Some of the objectives we're going to be going through during this course is we're going to focus on the fundamentals of a successful salesperson, kind of the basics, right? So we understand from start to finish as to what it takes to be a successful salesperson. We'll go through these proven tools and techniques that I talked about. We'll also talk about the sales process. We'll go through a 7-step process that successful salespeople today go through. And these are also proven to ensure that you're on the right track to ensure success. Now, there's a sales process, but there's a flip side to this. There's also a buyer's process. Buyers actually buy in a process, just like salespeople sell in a process. We'll take you through both. We'll also go through time management skills. How can you do a sales class without time management skills and techniques? We want to make sure you're doing the right thing for the right situation and spending the right time in that area. We'll also talk about qualification techniques. We want to make sure that the actual customers and the prospects that you're calling on, that these are qualified individuals and qualified companies to make sure that you are spending the right time on these particular accounts. Goal setting will be another objective we'll be talking about. Very important. In fact, it's one of the first things we'll discuss. This is critical to the success of any salesperson out there, to ensure that they've actually got something that they're trying to reach for, something they're striving for, some type of end result. If you're going to be fighting the fight every single day, we want to make sure we know what we're fighting for. The last thing we'll be talking about is how to handle objections and our closing techniques. Now, it's inevitable. You're going to get objections. I know you think you're great. I know you're going to be wonderful out there. But the fact of the matter is that objections come just like any other day. And we got to understand how to overcome those. And then use closing techniques, so not to be aggressive, but to be assertive enough where they understand where we're coming from. Let's go through each. First, we're going to talk about building the sales foundation. What we're basically doing is laying the groundwork. We want to make sure that there's a path that we want to follow, kind of a roadmap, if you will, in terms of this whole sales process, from start to finish. Your job is to find the right tool for the right situation. Our job is to provide those tools to you to ensure that you pick and choose the right tool for that right situation. Now, in any salesperson's career, all right, whether they're starting out or they've been doing this for quite some time, everyone's got their strengths and weaknesses. Our job is to leverage the strengths you already have, build upon those, and then also hit those weaknesses or those challenges that we've been facing, and turn those challenges, in essence, into strengths. Basically, when you look at this whole foundation piece, I think if there's one thing I'd like you to remember is this. Learn, leverage, and limit. Learn as much as you possibly can. I mean, all these tools are coming at you. Learn as much as you possibly can. Obviously, you'll be taking notes. We'll be doing some role plays along the way to kind of help you guide through this whole process, but learn as much as you can. You want to leverage currently what you already know. Take the strengths, take the information that you know today, and then learn the ones that you're going to be learning as we go along this process, but leverage those strengths. The last thing is we want to limit. What I mean by that is this, is that you've got a lot of information coming at you. There's a lot of tools and techniques that you're going to be gaining here in the weeks to come. We want to make sure that you pick and choose the tool, but only pick a couple. I mean, really get good at those, and then move on to the others. We're talking about 25, 30 tools and techniques. It's a lot. The last thing you want to do is try to do everything all at once. Learn, understand, learn as much as you can, leverage those strengths, understand what your challenges are, and then limit the tools. In other words, pick and choose a couple of tools for the situation that you're up against right now. And when you do that, you'll be ready to actually move on. The next thing we want to talk about is your roles and responsibilities. All right, well, there's a number of different things we can look at. Number one, salespeople out there, some just have a base salary, okay? And that's pretty much going to be the case no matter what job you get, if you already have one. There's a base salary attached to just about every position out there. There's also base salary plus commission. A lot of people get into sales for that reason alone, because they know that there's the ability to make as much as you can. Now, some commissions have caps, they have these ceilings, but for the most part, salespeople out there go for the commission. Base salary is just, in essence, to pay the bills. The commission could be to actually knock it out of the ballpark. Some of the roles out there could be, you might be in inside sales. An inside salesperson obviously is not outside in the field, talking to customers out there in the field on a daily basis, creating those appointments. They're inside the actual work environment, making phone calls or receiving calls. Now, the flip side of that is that there's an outside sales role. That is where you're out in the field. You're out in the field making phone calls, cold calling, talking to customers, speaking to them, having appointments on a regular basis, drive time. There's different roles we'll play, and we'll talk about each of those. There's also roles where the responsibility might be strictly new sales. Your job is to be the hunter. Your job is to go out there and find as much new business as you possibly can. The other side of it is that you might be in retention sales, where your job is not to go out and get new sales as it is to just retain the base you already have, to ensure that the customers continually buy more products and services that you guys offer, and try to lessen the churn in terms of losing customers. Or it could be both. It could be a combination. You could be a hybrid, whereas you actually are new sales, and at the same time you're trying to retain sales. So it could be a combination of the two. So based upon your role or responsibility, a number of these could take place. If you're already in that position, you already know your role. You know what's expected of you. And we'll talk about certain tools and techniques that you can use to better off that situation. We'll talk about setting goals. In essence, creating a standard. There's standards today that we all set for ourselves. But the fact of the matter is, whatever standard that is for you, there's no right or wrong here. Okay? Setting goals isn't something like, I got to set a certain amount of goals, or I've got to set a certain type of goal to ensure that I'm successful. It's not the case. We'll just talk about the importance of setting goals as a whole. The fact of the matter is that once you do this, you've got to make sure you hold yourself accountable. Typically, nobody else is. A lot of times you're on your own. You want to make sure that you hold yourself accountable when these goals are set. We want to develop a roadmap, some type of personal and professional map of success. We want to understand exactly where we are today and where do we want to be. That roadmap will help you get there. We'll also talk about balancing your professional career with your personal career. What do I mean by that? Well, most of us would be as we're working, a majority of our life will be, unfortunately, in the office, or fortunately, however you want to look at it. The fact of the matter is that there needs to be balance. The successful salespeople that I've interviewed, I've talked to, I've coached, I've trained, have all told me that the bottom line is that there's got to be balance in their life. Because again, you live to work, you work to live. The fact of the matter is there's other facets in your life that we've got to ensure that there's a balance. We'll talk more about that later. We'll talk about the sales process. The sales process is an important piece on one of the lectures that we're going to be discussing here. This is, in essence, what you do on a regular basis. The sales process is 7 steps that we'll be going through. One is the greeting, kind of the introduction. When you make that initial phone call, or if they're calling you, how can we gain that interest immediately? How can we gain credibility? We'll talk about that. The next step is needs assessment. How do we actually find out specifically what they're looking for? Buyers want and they need certain things. It's our job to find out what that is. In essence, the more that they tell us what they want and what they need, they're basically telling us how to sell to them. So our job is to ask the right questions, not have all the answers. All the people I've talked to, of all the salespeople out there, I found out one common denominator. Great salespeople do not have great answers. They don't. Great salespeople have great questions. And these types of questions we need to ask to ensure we get the answers we're looking for from the customer. Because the more they tell us, the better off we'll be. The next one is going to be sales presentation. we've got to understand exactly in terms of the sales presentation, what do we do? Gestures, nonverbals, what should be included in the presentation, strengths, weaknesses. We'll talk a lot about it, how we actually go about that process, what it looks like, and what we should do to ensure we're doing the right thing, saying the right thing, and building confidence along the way. The next step is validation. We've basically got to validate their educational experience. Some people use Justify, and I understand that, but we've got to make sure we're actually validating the information they've already received from us. During the sales presentation, we're educating them on our products and services, and possibly ourselves. Once that happens, we've got to validate what they already know. We'll talk more about that. The next step is negotiate. Now, negotiating happens throughout the entire sales process, but typically, usually, most people feel like it happens at the end. And that's usually when conversations come into play. We're always negotiating. But in essence of the sales process itself, typically happens towards the tail end. Another step that we go through is closing. We'll talk about closing tools and techniques, how to close effectively, not aggressively, but effectively. And the last step in the sales process is post-sales activities. A lot of us feel like once the sale is closed and once we have the order in our hand, our job is done. Not necessarily the case. We want to make sure that we actually use some of these tools and techniques to ensure that we actually keep these customers long term, not short term. And the post-sales activities can be a key component in making that happen. Sometimes it takes months and months and sometimes years to close any particular account. But how long does it take to actually lose a customer? Seconds, right? Sometimes you don't even get that phone call. So we want to make sure the post-sales activities are concrete. We understand what needs to be done after the sale has been made. Whatever we do in the sales process, we want to make sure that every effort is about the customer. Every effort is about the customer. It's all about them. It's always been all about them. A lot of salespeople out there today, unfortunately, think it's about them. Getting the deal, getting the commission, doing whatever I can to close this deal. Well, fine. But the fact of the matter is, until we understand that it's all about the customer, that's when we can truly help them be more successful and really truly understand what they need, because it's all about them. And if you think about it, if the customer gets what they want, so do you. When the customer feels like they win based upon a recommendation or solution that you provided, if they win, you win. Let's make sure that this conversation is two-way as opposed to one-way when we're going down this path during the sales process. Well, the flip side that I said earlier was that there's a sales process, but there's also a buyer's process. Buyers actually buy in a process. When you buy something, a pair of shoes, a car, a new house, whatever it may be, you buy in an actual process. Well, just because sales go down a process, buyers do the same thing. And the more we understand the process, the better off we'll be. And now we can actually walk hand in hand with them down their own buyer's process. And we'll take our sales process and integrate it with their own buy process. And all of a sudden, we're kind of speaking the same language, as opposed to us having a certain agenda and then having a completely different agenda. Buyers buy in this process. We're going to take you through 5 steps that buyers go through. First, they go through initial interest. Then they want to educate themselves. Buyers need to transfer ownership. They need to understand what's in it for them. They then rationalize this decision capabilities. In other words, they say to themselves, is this the right product? Is this the right company? Do I even like the salesperson? They go through that rationalized stage. And that's usually when the negotiations really start kicking in. And then buyers make decisions. Buyers make decisions. Buyers don't close themselves. The last step of the sales process is close. The last step of the buyer's process is decide. There's a big difference. We've got to understand the two, and we'll take you through that. We've got to understand the buyer's motivation. Buyers go from, why would I do this, to, well, why wouldn't I? We've got to understand the motivation for each. Your job is to create value. Their job is to basically convince you that you have a commodity-type product. Now look, nobody buys the cheapest thing out there, the least expensive. They don't, not every time at least. So in other words, we understand the value that a lot of products and services offer out there in the world today. But still our job is to try to commoditize that product. Why? Because then we think we're getting a better deal. In a lot of cases, if it is a commodity product, it usually comes down to one issue, which is what? You're right, price. So for us, our job is to create that value and help them understand what that value is going to mean to themselves and or their business. Time and territory management is another piece we're going to be going through. We want to do more in less time. We feel like the calendar's full, but nothing's getting done. In other words, where's our activity being driven? What are we doing at this point that actually is consistent with our goals? Procrastination usually is the most common time management threat in any salesperson's lives. I call it the silent killer. We will talk more about that as we get into the time management lecture. We want to categorize our day and accounts basically by A, B's, and C's. There's an A, B, and C method that we'll be taking you through. That's a tool and technique that you can use to ensure that we're spending the right time with the right accounts. Our job is to be proactive. During your sales career, a proactive salesperson obviously is a lot better than a reactive salesperson. A lot of us get up in the day. What do? We check voicemail, we check email, right? We maybe read the paper, whatever it might be. Next thing you look at the clock, and it's 11 o'clock in the morning. Where'd the day go? It's a very reactive type of role. Our job is to be much more proactive. And we'll take you through that. We want to qualify an opportunity. Qualification is one of the most important steps any salesperson could ever do. Now, buyers don't qualify themselves. This is definitely a critical process in terms of the sales arena. Something called Bush's Bullets I'll be taking you through. It's 7 key questions that we've got to ensure that we can answer to ensure we've got a qualified opportunity. We don't want to waste precious time on maybes. You guys know what maybes are, right? Maybes are the ones where they say, well, maybe we'll do it. Well, maybe we'll actually make a decision next week. Well, maybe this is the right time. Well, maybe you're the right company. All of a sudden, we buy into this. Well, maybe I got a shot. Maybe this is something I can really take advantage of. We had a saying back in my company, and it was bolded all over the office. Yeses are great. Nos are great. Maybes will hurt you. Because a maybe is a deal, an account that's out of control. Our job is to get a yes or a no without delay. Because if you get a yes, great job, you got the deal. If you get a no, well, at least now I know where I stand. A maybe is that kind of slow no that keeps on coming back. And we still think we got a shot. So we keep putting it in the sales funnel, we keep putting it into our forecast, and next thing you know, the deal never materializes. But we spent months on trying to close the deal. So we'll talk about the qualification techniques. Handling objections and closing skills. We'll start using listening skills as a weapon. When you actually are on the phone or actually in front of a customer, typically the rule of thumb is that 80% of that meeting should be you listening, not talking. But salespeople, come on. A lot of them won't shut up. They just keep going. But you're the expert, right? You know your product and service better than anybody else. So it's your job to actually tell them what you think they should know. Not necessarily the case. We'll talk more about that as well. When buyers talk to you, they're basically telling you how to sell to them. We want to make sure that we ask the right questions to ensure we get that information back from that customer. Closing always happens in the beginning, middle, and end. We're always closing. Not aggressive approach, but we're just closing. We'll take you through some certain techniques and tools to ensure that we are closing throughout that entire sales process. In summary, basically what we're talking about here is very, very simple. And again, I don't want to overcomplicate this. There's a lot of information that is going to come your way. Very effective tools, proven tools. Your job, right, is to soak up as much information as you possibly can. Pick and choose the right tool for the right situation. Now, if you haven't even started in sales yet, that's okay. So you're going to gain this information, gain all this knowledge, and then when you go out into the field, you're going to come across some challenging situations. You're then going to pick a tool for the right situation. Your job is to understand your strengths and turn those challenges into assets. At the end of the day, when we're finished with this course, and you've got all this information in front of you, the bottom line is, hey, you're in sales. Have fun. Sales is a great job. It's a lot of fun. Sure, there's a lot of negative spins relative to you getting a lot of no's and rejections. The fact of the matter is this job can be a blast. If you make it that way, if you enjoy what you do, majority of your time is going to be at work. Why not have fun? And that's what we're here to do. Thanks. Looking forward to seeing you in future lectures. Take care.